Board of Zoning Appeals, September 20th, 2016 meeting to order, and ask to stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start by introducing the board members, starting to my left.
Sumit Shah.
Christopher Bluer. Todd Chernick.
Kim Keller.
We'll start by looking for a motion to adopt the agenda as published.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the agenda as it's been presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the tonight's agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed unanimous. Seeking a motion to approve the July meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve the July meeting minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve July's meeting minutes, again as published. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimous. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-legal board comprised of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determination. With regard to decisions on primary variances, the board's basis for decision is provided by these four considerations. Relief, if granted, would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance, and there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured and that substantial justice is done. We'll start with consideration of primary variances, V16-009. Would staff please present?
Yes, sir. V16-009. The site, 16039 Manor Club Drive, is a 1.609 acre single-family lot in the Manor subdivision. It is zoned AG1 and is located in the rural Milton overlay. In 2015, the owners, Stephanie and David Cocchiara, contracted to purchase the then under construction residence on this site. They contracted separately with the pool contractor to build a pool deck, and the accessory structure. The pool pavilion, while permitted correctly, was constructed with a 6.4-foot encroachment into the left side setback. Section 416J1 states that the side setback for AG1 properties is 25 feet. No structures are to be constructed in this area. Since the Cocchiara's pool pavilion is 18.6 feet from the left property line, a variance is required. On September 6, 2016, the DRB offered the following comments. The structure is already built. The building is not bad looking. No concerns as long as the applicant has the approval of the neighbors and the HOA, and they suggested condition that the structure cannot be altered. There were no additional comments from site plan review, the city architect, the arborist, or DOT stormwater. Standards for consideration were read earlier, and the applicant responds as follows. We have met with the owner of the adjacent lot to attempt to reconfigure the property lines to address the property problem. The size and shape of the lots and the typical residence footprint built in the manor prevent us from adjusting the property lines. There is no known detriment to the public good or surrounding properties from the encroachment of our accessory structure. The owner of the adjacent lot has no objections to the proposed variance. The aesthetics of the open side pavilion and the applicant's intention of preserving as much landscaping between the two lots will not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties if relief is granted. There is no known impact to the public safety, health, and welfare. The staff response. Approving a variance for this existing accessory structure will not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. Currently, there is no home adjacent to the pool pavilion. The new residents will know that the structure is there prior to purchasing. The slope of the property and existing vegetation limit the places where the structure could be relocated to. The public good will not be harmed by this variance. Having to relocate the structure would cause more destruction to the existing vegetation and negatively impact the quality of life of the neighbors than allowing the structure to remain where it is. The public safety, health, and welfare are secured, and substantial justice will be done by allowing the structure to remain where it is. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. The structure is to remain unenclosed, and the staff recommendation is to approve this variance with the conditions. This concludes the staff presentation.
I'll first make note for the record, we have our fifth board member, Walt Recook, here tonight now. Are there any questions for staff regarding the application? Okay, hearing no questions, the applicant may come forward and present. Please state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Scott Reese with Brumbelow Reese & Associates, doing business at 13685 Highway 9, Milton, Georgia, 30004. I'm here tonight representing Cacheras and their application for the variance on the side building setback line. As previously stated, there was never any intent. There was an error in assuming where the property line was. The mishap was only discovered at the time of a closing survey. When that was discovered, the Cacheras contacted their original builder, Mr. Fuqua, let him know since he also owns the lot next door. Tommy came to us to see how we could remedy it as far as adjusting a property line. When we attempted that, it harmed his lot more than any other remedy. So he was of the opinion that we should just apply for a variance. Met with the Cacheras, went over everything. So that's where we are. Once again, we want to make sure that it was not intended to build over the line. They filed the proper site plan with the city and with the Manor HOA. We have a letter from the adjoining property owner that would most be affected by this. Tommy Fuqua, the president of Fuqua and Associates, he is in agreement with letting the structure stay. We also have an email from the Manor HOA that states they are in favor of the variance application. We're fine with, they have no desire to alter the building in any shape or manner. So with that, we are here to be, we will be glad to answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Does staff have copies of those letters that you just mentioned?
She has the letter from Mr. Fuqua. The email, he can show it to them off of your phone, and he can forward it. It just came in, I think, in the last day or two. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd request you forward that to staff so we have that for the file.
Okay. We'll do the bookkeeping.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Are there any intentions to place a fire pit in or surrounding this this accessory structure?
I will let the applicant himself address that.
Name and address.
Good evening. I'm David Koshera. I'm the owner of 16039 Manor Club Drive, Milton, Georgia, 30004. In response to your question, no, there's no intent to build a fire pit or to further enclose or make any further structural modifications to the pavilion.
Okay. Thank you for being so thorough. Are there any other questions for the applicant? You have a chance to make a closing. Oh, hang on. I need to get public comment. You can go ahead and take a seat for a minute. Call for public comment. Is there anyone here to speak in favor or in opposition to this application? Hearing and seeing no one in the public, I'll ask if you want to make a closing comment, you're free to do so.
I just want to reiterate that everyone in proximity to the structure has agreed that it should not be taken down, that it is not a detriment. And so, with that being said, I will wait for your verdict. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any questions to the applicant or staff regarding this application? Yes, Walt.
I was just going to make a comment that I have worked for Mr. Fuqua before. I knew nothing about him being even involved in this case before it was even filed. There's nothing on his name on the application or anything else. I don't know if I need to excuse myself or not, but I don't feel like it's going to be a conflict of interest, but it's up to the attorney. What do you think I should do?
As long as you're comfortable that it won't impact your decision, it doesn't sound like there's any absolute need. It's up to you, as long as you can make a fair and impartial decision.
I believe I can, and I believe that would influence me one way or the other. So,
Okay. Any other questions for staff or the applicant? At this point, the public hearing is closed, and I'll open the floor for a motion and a second.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve V16-009 for at 16039 Manor Club Drive. That's a long sentence, I'm sorry. With the, as presented, with the condition of approval that the structure shall remain unenclosed and no additional features shall be added in or near such structure.
Hang on, I
No,
gotta
no,
get a
no.
second. Is there a second?
If full calling for say, I was the word features. I heard the word structural
Right.
in the presentation, which I was more comfortable with. Is there? Did you intend?
Maybe, may I clarify, Mr. Chairman?
Sure, you don't have a second yet.
Great. Counselor, if I may.
Sure.
That we approve V16-009, 16039 Manor Club Drive, as presented with the following conditions, that the structure shall remain unenclosed and no additional features shall go over. You
Well, I
don't
guess
like more features.
just a feature could be the paint on the.
Fair.
I wondered if it was structural features was.
The structural
Potent-
features, is that
I feel
enhancements?
structural enhancement.
Structural enhancements?
I guess
I
I'll
think
def-
structural is the key, because enhancement could be a
I
curtain also. So I think
Here's what
structural
we're gonna
is
do.
the key.
V16-009. The structure shall remain unenclosed.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second to approve V16-009. Is there any discussion? Motion and a second to approve V16-009 with the following condition: the structure shall remain unenclosed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Good luck.
Thanks for being prepared. I'll now move on to the next case, V16-010, and ask staff to please present.
Mr. Chair, staff would like to request that V16-010 be deferred until the next meeting in October. The applicant did not appear before the design review board as they were required to, so we had to push everything back a month.
Okay. I'll make a motion to defer V16-010 to our next scheduled meeting.
Second.
And we have a second. Any discussion? A motion and a second to defer V16-010. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimous. Are there any considerations of appeals?
I have none.
Is there any old business?
I have none.
Is there any new business?
No, sir.
If I may,
Sure.
if I can, and counsel, I need some guidance from you on this, to suggest for a future consideration meeting, Angela, we hear a lot of what I will call pool cases, where it goes into
Stream buffer?
the stream buffer. And for the most part, not all, but for the most part, I think we're all, there's a logical reason as to why. Is there a way for us to mitigate a citizen's need to come before us with those types of minor variances? And I'm
Not this board, the
City council?
it would be
We'd have to
an
change the
ordinance.
ordinance.
It would be, okay.
I mean, if that's something you want us to look into, if you feel comfortable.
And this is Christopher speaking. Certainly, I'm not speaking on behalf of my colleagues, but I think I'm trying to make Milton a happy place to live. And sometimes some of these minor things are just government intrusion, and I wonder if it's necessary.
Yeah, well,
One comment, and I agree with you, Chris. Only thing I would say that we have to be very careful about pool equipment. I've heard more complaints
Sure.
about pool equipment, that's something that really doesn't even get shown on plans sometimes, and they really need to be reflected on the plans, but
And that's a fair point.
provided we don't have anything involving
And
pool
it's-
equipment.
So perhaps, Counselor, it's just that, and again, I don't want to speak for my fellow board members, but from my perspective, I think it might behoove City Council to look into this appropriately.
are there any other comments? What are the conditions for staff to address some of these variance requests administratively? What's the guidelines?
It's actually the other way around. There's a very limited number of things by ordinance that staff can approve administratively. It's 10% of a setback encroachment, maybe a parking reduction, but that's about it.
So would we be asking for these type of cases to be considered administratively? Is that what we're suggesting?
Basically, yeah.
That would be an option.
Sure. I don't know what the right answer is, but I think it's a question. If I had to guess, over the last 50 cases that we've heard, a significant majority of those cases have been, again in quotation marks, pool-related. And is that necessary? And I'm asking the question, can somebody who understands...
We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we've had several. Staff has.
So is your suggestion that staff looks into options to mitigate some of the
It is. But taking
more,
mundane.
I don't want to label it that way, but more administrative?
Right, because
They're
but at the same time, Walt has a
I
valid
mean,
point.
those are minor.
Those are, I think what you're looking at is above ground portions of the structure are my issues, right? Because that's what they are.
Sure.
The below ground and the deck itself is not an issue.
Typically, no.
Right.
So then would staff come back to us with what they recommend before we would then propose that to go on further, or what would be the process?
Well, it just depends how formal this board wants to be in terms of coming up with an exact proposal that is then forwarded to the council, or just send to the city council a comment that they would like to see some changes. I mean, what you do, I mean, it's never going to be passing an ordinance.
Sure.
No,
But it's just a matter of the detail that you want to have in front of you to then vote on whether you want to then recommend or send to the council.
So what's the pleasure of this board? Is it make the request and let it follow the normal course, or do we want to have any input or review of that request?
My opinion is that if we actually submit something, it would probably get done sooner than later versus just letting it.
Free float, I would agree.
Well,
And again, I think I agree, and that's what I'm saying, something like if there's a 10-foot encroachment, I think that's probably I don't know if it's 10 or, you have to think, most times encroachment in the side yard setback, which is 25 feet. If you say that if it's more than, just say half that, 12 and a half feet.
And perhaps Kim's right, that, and maybe this is a good way, and Counselor, just your guidance, if you would, please. If we put this as an item on next month's meeting, inform the public, if anybody wanted to come in from a public standpoint, participate in that feedback, we then decide on what voice we would like to speak in a uniform manner back to city council, I think that'd be a strong position to come from.
Okay, can you, with that, I agree with making it public, that this would be a discussion topic if anyone wants to
Sure,
comment on it.
absolutely.
And again, I'm thinking 50% of the setback is what I'm thinking.
I'll
Unless the
have-
council's agreeing with you.
Yeah, Counselor,
Unfortunately, I don't know that there is a public comment portion to the
new business?
Board of Zoning Appeals. Yeah, there's
Well,
But
hang
there
on, I
will
didn't
be
mean
for
that
city
they actually had to
council.
comment.
for the city
But if they
council.
wanted to hear the discussion and then raise that to their
It could be
councilperson,
placed
they
on
could
the
do that.
agenda, and the agenda is published. They know it would be discussed.
That's what I was
Right,
intending.
but that's,
Okay,
that's,
okay,
that's
yeah.
a good,
And then
Yeah.
if they had issues with what we were discussing or proposing, they could bring it up to
they
the
would go to the
councilperson.
council as informed as they could be about the,
Now, but with that, can you bring a suggestion as far as some verbiage that we could react to?
you want me to write something, is that what you're saying?
I think the thing I would look for is 50% of the setback that is going to be encroached upon, provided the structure is underground. So that's kind of the way I would phrase it.
Counselor
So
Sam?
that way it's it affects rear, side, front, it could be any
Sure.
of those.
I think it'll be more efficient if we have something that.
Or
we're
accept
You
the
know, I
front, or
concur.
accept the front. You don't want
Is
to encroach
is
in the
there
front.
any disclosure issues if we, via some shared site, if we write a document and see that beforehand, edit it beforehand?
I wouldn't go through the process of agreeing
No, not-
and coming up with we've all agreed this is the final thing that
Sure.
before this meeting. If somebody wants to send around, here's something I was thinking about and I'm going to present,
Fair enough. Okay.
individuals may get back to them
Yeah.
and say, here's a comment I had. But
Don't forget about this, or-
ideally,
Understood.
one thing comes up and we kind of meld it in public rather than.
Understood, okay.
And-
I got, well, I was gonna say, I got one
Yes, sir.
comment, just in terms of, is there any way that, not us, the Board of Zoning Appeals, but the city could, get to some of these issues like on the front end, when this construction is going on,
I think that,
so that, there isn't an issue where, they've gone over a setback line?
or during the permitting, during the permitting process, hopefully it would be addressed. I mean,
Right.
logically, that
I'm
seems to
sure
be.
that does happen, and those cases don't come before us, because
They've already
nip
figured it out, that's what I'm saying.
the ones that come before us, I'm assuming
People mess up.
right.
Yeah, this was permitted correctly, it just got
They
built
built it.
wrong.
Yeah, this was a screw up. I mean, I didn't sense any
We gotta
malintent.
fix it.
I have
Go ahead,
one other
please.
question in regards to your proposal is, and how would this affect this design review board? Because we seem to constantly, would it subjugate them also from being a part of the process?
We would mitigate their workload.
And again, I'm thinking that by making
Did
it.
you like that?
By making it a percentage versus a number of feet, you have an ability to effectively cover all zoning districts. Because it would be too hard to
Sure.
say 5 foot or 10 foot.
Fair point.
And in that way, if a
Percent
townhome
encroachment,
yeah.
is one thing versus something else, that you make it a percentage, and I think that's easier to handle than it would be if you made it a certain number of feet. And I would exclude the front yard setback in this case.
Well, pools aren't
Well, let's-
allowed in the
let's-
front
let's-
yard.
Well, I know that,
so-
but if they ask for one, and
Well, we're talking
trying
stream
to.
buffers, right?
Well, no.
Side yard, and rear yard.
Well, see, you've never had an issue with pools in the side or rear setback, because the pool can go up to 10 feet from the property line.
But we've had problems with flag lots. Last month, we had a flag lot where the front yard really
Right.
wasn't the front yard.
Well, you're expanding, I thought we were just talking about pools and stream
No,
buffers.
absolutely. Wasn't that a pool issue? Was that
No,
Was that a barn?
it was a garage.
It was
Yeah,
a garage?
yeah.
Okay. But let me do this. I'll put some thought into it.
And you guys can comment,
But-
and then we'll discuss next month.
Well, I was also gonna say, Council, are you aware of any other jurisdictions that have more latitude administratively for the staff?
Fair question. Is there a starting point that we should look at perhaps?
I don't know off the top of my head any that specifically reference pools as being granted an administrative, extra leeway.
Or broader administrative language in general.
Yeah.
Because there does
Because-
seem to be some minor things that are
And
brought
here-
before us.
Here's the genesis of my,
Hang on, let me see.
oh,
Is there
sorry.
is there broader language? This seems very narrow administrative language. Is that typical?
I mean, I wouldn't say that there's a standard one way or the other. I mean, it's kind of meshed with each jurisdiction as they. I wouldn't say that any outlie in particular, one or the other. They provide a small window of administrative options, and usually it's in a 10%. The just off the top of my head, the typical one is to allow them to grant a variance of up to 10% of a setback. Usually they're relatively limited.
What brought this thought to mind is, long story how I discovered this, Alpharetta, for example, has not had a BZA meeting in over a year. I'm curious, why are they so different than what we're doing? They're a larger city. I would think they're presented with the same type of issues that we address.
Do you have any experience with that, Angela, as your peer in the city of Alpharetta?
I wasn't aware of that.
I mean, just off the top of my head, two options just based on the way we've been speaking this evening. One is that they have a stricter set of criteria or applications such that people
That might be part of it.
assume
That could
that they're
be,
not
yeah.
going to get anything, so they don't apply for them.
Could be.
Or alternatively, maybe they have greater administrative approval, or their ordinance allows for a lot of the things that our ordinance may prohibit, subject to getting a variance. I haven't looked at Alpharetta's
Is
years.
it easy for you to grab maybe 3 or 4 different city or county administrative language? Is that simple for you to, without costing the city a lot of money?
It's relatively easy to obtain.
Okay.
If you have particular ones, otherwise I can pull
I would.
a number. We represent 7 or 8 jurisdictions, so
Alpharetta would be interesting, and so I think with Forsyth. But
Alfred and Forsyth would be the two certainly most interesting.
I'm certainly
Maybe.
and maybe Johns Creek.
Sure. Alfred, Johns Creek, and Forsyth. Perfect. Yep.